Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered what separates those who break from those who rise? What if surviving the storm has less to do with luck and everything to do with mindset? And what if your greatest strength is already inside you, just waiting to be activated? The storm will come, the pressure will build, and life will do everything it can to push you to the edge. But in that chaos, you must act as if survival was always your destiny. You weren't designed to collapse. You were shaped by the fire, not to be consumed by it, but to be sharpened in it. The moment you carry yourself like someone who is meant to make it through, something inside you awakens. Resilience takes over. Fear loses its grip, and suddenly you can see clearly. But if you pause, if you hesitate for even a second, you hand over the reins to weakness. The question is, will you rise and face the fire or fold under its weight? Your answer is already forming deep within your mindset. In the next few moments, you'll discover how to take command of your mind, to not just survive the storm, but to adapt, transform, and emerge stronger. Because you are far more powerful than you've been led to believe. There's a quiet voice that speaks when no one's around. It says, I can't keep going. But that voice is lying. You were made for this. Whatever fire you're walking through wasn't designed to destroy you. It was meant to refine you. Every human being, when tested, faces a choice: break or become unbreakable. And that choice, it's yours alone. When you act as if you were meant to survive, your entire mindset shifts from panic to power. The struggle doesn't vanish, but you stop shrinking in the face of it. And that single change in your posture can turn the impossible into reality. Because survival isn't about the odds, it's about your conviction. Too many people wait until they feel ready. But by then, it's often too late. Survival isn't a feeling, it's a decision. You don't act strong because you feel like it. You act strong because your life demands it. Think about Winston Churchill. When bombs rained down on London and the world expected Britain to collapse, Churchill stood tall with unshakable resolve. He didn't wait to feel safe before taking action. He led decisively so that others could feel safe. That's what true survival looks like. You don't retreat when the skies darken. You don't hide when the winds howl. You stop running from a storm, and instead, you become the storm. So the next time fear whispers that you're not enough, that you should quit, remember who you are. You weren't just made for this, you were born for this. You've faced darkness before, and every time, you made it through. Why would this moment be any different? Don't forget what you've already overcome. You've stood in the fire and walked through the cold. You've endured more than you give yourself credit for. What remains now is simple. Act like the survivor you already are. Strength isn't some magical force. It's the result of relentless effort, struggle, and choosing to rise when it would be easier to fall. Decide, right here and now, who you will be in the face of adversity. Because tough times, they don't define you. They reveal you. When the weight of the world is on your shoulders, will you buckle, or will you carry it and keep moving forward? The answer has always been yours to give. Many wait for the storm to pass before they take a step. But the ones who rise, they learn to dance in the rain. You may not get to choose the storm's life sends your way, but you do get to choose your response. And if you choose early, before the chaos hits, that you're the kind of person who refuses to back down, then no hardship can truly defeat you. Why? Because your identity is already rooted, and storms can't shake what's anchored deep. That's the secret most people never see. They believe endurance is something you feel, something that comes from bursts of inspiration. But it doesn't. It comes from knowing who you are, from deciding, again and again, this is me, even when life gets hard. Ask yourself daily, who am I in the face of pressure? Who do I become when nothing goes as planned? When Thomas Edison's laboratory went up in flames, decades of work lost in a single moment, he didn't sit and mourn. He didn't cry over the ashes. He rebuilt, not because it was easy, not because he was inspired, but because he had already made the decision long before tragedy struck. He knew who he was. He was not someone who gave up. He didn't need motivation. He had conviction. He had a mindset. And now it's your turn to do the same. When you act like you were made to endure, you stop depending on the absence of pain and start listening to the power of purpose. That's when everything changes. You become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin. That feeling of total readiness may never come. What matters most is the decision, the bold, quiet commitment to act. Let that decision carry you through uncertainty, through pain, through the days you don't feel strong. Because every setback, every failure, every heartbreak holds a hidden seed, a seed of growth, of strength, of greater purpose. But fear thrives only when you feed it. Fear doesn't tiptoe in. It arrives loud, demanding attention like an unwanted guest who won't take silence for an answer. It pounds on the doors of your mind, hoping you'll pause, hoping you'll open up and let it in. It wants to be heard, to be obeyed, to steer your choices. But here's the truth that changes everything. Just because fear shouts doesn't mean you have to listen. Fear casts long, distorted shadows. It stretches itself across your path until it looks larger than life, making everything ahead feel unreachable. But what is a shadow, really? It's nothing more than a distortion, an illusion shaped by the angle of your light. Shift that light, shift your perspective, and suddenly what once seemed enormous becomes manageable. The secret to defeating fear isn't to wrestle with it, it's to starve it. Starve your attention, your energy, your belief. And how do you starve fear? By refusing to grant it power, by acting as if it holds no authority over you. Every single step you take toward the thing that scares you chips away at its control. But when you hesitate, when you stall, when you circle around your fears instead of moving through them, you feed them. You give them room to grow. Worry and avoidance are the fuel fear feeds on. With every moment of inaction, fear strengthens its grip and digs deeper into your decisions. That's why so many dreams never leave the ground. So many hearts full of potential end up nourishing doubts that should have been left to die. Instead of nurturing courage, they tend to fear. But courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's the willingness to move forward as though victory is already within reach. It's a decision to walk as if success is inevitable, even when nothing around you guarantees it. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Before becoming one of the most respected presidents in American history, he endured defeat after defeat. 8 election losses, public embarrassment, financial struggles, and deep periods of depression. But through it all, he carried himself as though leadership was written into his future. He didn't wait for confidence to show up. He led with conviction, even before the world saw it in him. And that's the master key. You move first. You enter the arena before your emotions catch up. Because fear always speaks the language of what if. But courage speaks the language of even if. Even if it's hard, even if I fail, even if no one believes in me yet, I will rise anyway. Even if I fail, says courage, I will learn and I will grow stronger. That is the mindset that shifts everything. Starting now, you must begin to redirect your attention. Fear feeds on the worst-case scenarios you play in your head. It thrives on anxious thoughts and imagined disasters. But you have the power to starve it. How? By focusing on action, by replacing doubt with movement. Instead of feeding fear, start nourishing your faith through decisive, purposeful action. Because the ability you're searching for, it's not out there waiting to be found. It already lives within you. Doubt doesn't mean it's missing. It just clouds your vision. The more you entertain those doubts, the harder it is to see your own strength. But that strength is still there, waiting to be claimed. Every survivor, every champion, every person who's ever done something meaningful didn't start with perfect confidence. They began with shaking hands and racing hearts. The difference? They moved anyway. That's the dividing line. When fear whispers that you're not enough, respond with action. When it tells you to turn back, take a bold step forward. And when it paints vivid images of failure, you must choose to create something far more powerful. Images of hope, of growth, of victory. The real antidote to fear has never been fearlessness. It's been faithful forward motion, a willingness to keep walking even when your knees are trembling. Because fear isn't a fixed reality, it's just a state of mind. And like any state, it can shift. Minds can be trained, redirected, and renewed. The key is simple. Fear will grow if you feed it. So ask yourself, what are you nourishing? When you walk toward what scares you, something incredible happens. The shadow fear cast begins to shrink. Not because the challenge disappears, but because your courage expands. Step by step, fear loses its grip. By deliberately starving fear of your attention and feeding your courage through relentless action, you'll discover something profound, something every overcomer has eventually realized. That the monster you feared wasn't invincible. It only seemed that way until you stood up to it. The moment you claimed your power, the illusion broke. That power lies in mental discipline, because pain, whether emotional or physical, shows up without invitation. It knocks on everyone's door over and over again. And while you can't always stop pain from arriving, you can choose how you respond to it. Will you let it conquer you, or will you rise and conquer through it? Survival isn't just about muscles or strength of body. It's about the resilience of the mind. True endurance demands more than physical stamina. It requires sharp, disciplined thinking. Your mind must become your greatest ally, not your heaviest burden. And yet, the real tragedy in today's world? Far too many people hand over control to their emotions without a fight. Too often, people surrender control to their emotions without realizing the consequences. They hand over the steering wheel to fleeting feelings, temporary moods, momentary fear, sudden anger, and then act surprised when their lives veer off track. But true power, the kind that holds steady under pressure, only emerges when you take control on purpose. Not by chance, not when it's convenient, but deliberately. To reach that level of mastery, you must train your mind like a soldier trains for war. Every thought must be chosen carefully, like selecting the right tool for the mission. Every reaction must be intentional, driven by purpose, not by impulse. Emotional reflexes can destroy progress, but mental discipline, that builds a life of direction and strength. Strength doesn't appear just because you wish for it. It doesn't show up out of nowhere. It is earned day by day, through discipline, consistency, and relentless training. When pressure builds, and when those around you choose to retreat or crumble, your response must already be programmed, conditioned, unshaken. Stand firm. That's when preparation reveals its value. History is filled with powerful examples of unbreakable minds. Take George Washington. He led the Continental Army through the brutal winters of Valley Forge, where hunger, frostbite, and hopelessness surrounded every soldier. They had every reason to quit, but they didn't. Why? It wasn't just Washington's strategic mind that set him apart. It was his extraordinary mental discipline. He didn't just train his troops, he trained himself. He strengthened his mind to anticipate hardship, to face it without falling apart. That's what discipline does. It transforms you. It molds a mindset that stays focused even under fire. And that kind of discipline isn't something you can delay. It must begin now. If you wait until the crisis hits, it's already too late. The undisciplined react. They're tossed around by every wave of life's chaos. But the disciplined, they respond with clarity. They don't just survive the storm, they shape it to their favor. That's the difference. And it starts by creating structure. You must build daily rituals that ground you. These aren't optional habits. They're non-negotiable commitments to your highest self. When you design your day with intention, you take back control. Master your mornings, because how you begin your day determines how you'll face its challenges. Discipline is the rope that pulls you out of confusion and into clarity. It lifts you from reaction into purposeful living. And when the storm inevitably hits, and it will, your preparation will be the difference between collapse and composure. The disciplined mind doesn't scramble for answers in crisis. It already knows the path forward, because it prepared for this moment long before it arrived. When challenges arise, your response won't be improvised. It will come from pre-established patterns built through consistent mental training. In the face of adversity, your readiness won't come from hoping the world becomes easier. It will come from becoming stronger. That strength is built not in the spotlight, but in the quiet, unseen moments where discipline is forged. Mental discipline shows up in the smallest of choices. It's in waking up at the time you promised yourself, even when your body pleads for more rest. It's in completing a task, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. It's in following through on commitments, not because it's easy, but because you said you would. These seemingly minor wins stack up day by day until they form an inner strength that can't be shaken. The undisciplined wait to feel inspired before taking action. But the disciplined, they know the truth. Action comes first. Motivation follows. This is the great distinction. Self-discipline begins where thought begins, inside your own mind. If you don't govern your thoughts, how can you possibly govern your actions? The journey to mental mastery starts with the way you speak to yourself. Your internal dialogue isn't background noise. It's the foundation of everything. Your thoughts shape your beliefs. Your beliefs drive your actions. Your actions become habits. And those habits shape your character. Over time, your character determines your destiny. That's why mastering your mind is not optional. It's essential. Mental discipline is the skill of intercepting negative thought loops before they spiral into behaviors that sabotage your growth. It's the ability to pause, to question, to redirect before reaction becomes regret. So begin today. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity or ideal moment. Start small, but stay consistent. Identify just one area in your life that needs more discipline and set clear boundaries for it. Monitor your thoughts, but do so without judgment. Instead, gently guide them back to what serves you. Build simple, repeatable rituals in your mornings and evenings that align with your highest values. Learn to welcome discomfort, not because it's pleasant, but because it's the necessary price of progress. Growth never comes without challenge, and mental discipline is the tool that helps you endure it. And remember this, discipline won't make life easy. It won't erase pain, but it will make you someone who can face it without flinching. The next time life shakes the ground beneath your feet, you won't respond with panic. You will stand firm, with quiet, steady confidence, because your mind has been trained for the storm. Belief becomes your first and strongest defense when everything around you begins to tremble. And that belief, rooted in discipline, is what will carry you forward. So when everything begins to crumble, what truly keeps you standing? It's not wealth. Money can disappear in an instant. It's not even your closest support system, because in moments of real crisis, even the strongest bonds may waver. What truly sustains you, what becomes your strongest defense, is belief. A deep, unshakable conviction in your path. A quiet knowing that you were built to endure this season and outlast whatever tries to break you. Without belief, your actions lose grounding. They become guesses, not commitments. Survival turns into a gamble rather than a deliberate victory. That's why the most powerful skill you'll ever develop isn't physical strength or strategic thinking. It's the ability to believe before you see proof. Because during life's harshest winters, evidence is rare. Encouragement fades. Applause is absent. And yet, belief continues to burn from within. It becomes your compass in the dark. Belief lights the way when every other light has gone out. It whispers direction when silence surrounds you. And it all begins with a simple, powerful declaration: I was not made to break. That single phrase, spoken with sincerity, can spark the fire inside you when a world around you feels frozen. It becomes the anchor that keeps you from drifting when everything else slips away. Think of Helen Keller, deaf and blind from infancy. The world's expectations for her were tragically low. The world saw limitation. But her teacher and Sullivan saw potential, and Helen herself chose discipline over despair. Together, they rewrote what was thought possible. Through years of intense effort and unwavering belief, Helen graduated college with honors, authored 12 books, and journeyed to 39 countries to speak for those whose voices were unheard. What made this transformation possible? Not sight, not hearing, but belief. Helen couldn't physically see hope, but she chose to believe in it without hesitation. And that belief changed everything. It turned a young woman the world once pitted into a global symbol of strength and possibility. Belief does not ignore difficulty. It rises above it. It doesn't pretend obstacles don't exist. It simply refuses to let them win. Belief says, yes, this is hard, but you were created to rise above it. It becomes the steady whisper behind every step you take forward. And without that inner foundation, even the smallest setbacks can feel like towering walls. But with it, you become unstoppable. With belief rooted deep inside you, even the most staggering odds lose their power to defeat you permanently. You may stumble. You may feel the weight of the world pressing down, but you will not be crushed, because belief, once established, becomes your foundation. And when darkness surrounds you again, and it will, resist the instinct to ask the usual question: how do I escape this? Instead, ask something far more powerful. What must I believe to endure this season? That single shift in thinking changes the entire dynamic. The first question looks outward, searching for a quick exit. But the second, it turns inward. It activates your inner strength. It taps into your core. Because once belief takes root, the right actions begin to follow almost effortlessly. You don't have to force yourself forward. You flow forward. Survival, then, is no longer a desperate hope. It becomes a certainty, a natural extension of the power you've already chosen. Belief serves two essential purposes. It is both your shield and your sword. As a shield, it protects your spirit from the corrosive effects of despair, failure, and discouragement. It blocks the toxic voices, internal and external, that try to convince you to quit. As a sword, it cuts through the false boundaries others accept as unchangeable. It slashes through excuses, fears, and imagined limits. And you'll need both. Because life storms are inevitable. They won't ask your permission to arrive. So, you must be prepared before they do. That means cultivating belief intentionally as a daily habit, not something you reach for only in crisis. Feed your mind truths that empower. Replace the doubts with determination. Study the stories of those who overcame overwhelming odds. Let their resilience shape your own. Reflect often on your past victories, no matter how small they seem, because each one is proof that you've faced challenges before and made it through. Choose your influences carefully. Surround yourself with voices that lift you up, not pull you down. Listen to those who fuel your conviction, not those who drain it. And above all, speak belief over your own life, especially when nothing around you seems to support it. That's when it matters most. Understand this clearly. Belief is not fantasy. It's not wishful thinking or blind optimism. True belief looks reality in the face. It acknowledges pain, obstacles, and struggle, but refuses to let them define the outcome. It says, yes, this is hard, but no, this is not the end. Belief sees the challenge and still holds firm to the vision beyond it. It recognizes the mountain, but refuses to surrender at the base. Because what the mind can conceive and what it dares to believe will begin shaping the world around it. So when life tests you again, and it inevitably will, remember, belief is not just one of many tools at your disposal. It's your most vital internal force. Belief is your first and most crucial line of defense. Without it, everything else begins to crumble. No tactic, no strategy, no support system can compensate for its absence. But with belief rooted deep within you, even the most impossible challenges shrink into temporary obstacles. They no longer signal defeat. They mark the terrain you're destined to conquer. This is where transformation begins, not by avoiding pain, but by assigning it purpose. Pain by itself is not your enemy. What truly damages us is pain without meaning. Pain that lingers, festers, and erodes your spirit because it seems senseless. But when you attach purpose to pain, when you choose to see it as preparation, something powerful awakens within you. The real difference between growth and destruction lies in perception. If you can look at suffering not as cruel misfortune, but as intentional preparation, everything changes. Survival is not about merely enduring difficult seasons. It's about elevating them, turning hardship into wisdom and wounds into weapons of strength. Every scar you carry must serve a greater purpose. If not, it becomes a burden that never heals, a source of hidden suffering that quietly controls you. But the moment you give that pain meaning, it shifts. The pain that once drained you now teaches you. What once felt unbearable becomes an essential lesson, a turning point in your development. And that shift in perspective, it is the deepest form of power you can claim. Because pain is inevitable. Life guarantees that. But suffering? That part is optional. You suffer only when you convince yourself that the pain you're facing is pointless. Strip it of meaning, and it will consume you. Give it purpose, and it will forge you. Think of Benjamin Disraeli. Before rising to become one of Britain's most respected prime ministers, he faced harsh humiliation. His first speech in Parliament was so ridiculed, so mocked, that he couldn't even finish it. Most people would have walked away, but not Disraeli. He didn't retreat. He absorbed the mockery, digested the pain, and turned the sting of public rejection into fuel. Instead of crumbling, he returned again and again, stronger each time. He didn't see failure as final. It was training, conditioning. Each setback was sharpening him for the role he would eventually step into. And history confirmed it. His failures weren't wasted. They were transformed. They became stepping stones. Your challenge is no different. You too will be tested. You too will face pain. But the question is, what will you make of it? Transform your pain into preparation, into something far greater than the struggle itself. Let it shape you, sharpen you, and bring forth a kind of clarity that could never have existed before the suffering. Use it to forge strength that only resistance could reveal. Your hardship must not be the fire that burns you down. It must become the fire that fuels your rise. because every painful moment offers a decision point. You can allow it to break you, to shatter your confidence and spirit permanently. Or you can choose to let that very pain become the reason you'll never break again. That's the real fork in the road. Pain without purpose creates victims. But pain with purpose? It creates leaders. And the difference doesn't lie in how intense the suffering is. It lies in the meaning you assign to it. Two people can walk through the same storm. One emerges bitter, the other emerges wiser. Why? Because one chose to transform their wounds into wisdom. The people who lead others through darkness are often the ones who learn to survive their own. Their scars don't disqualify them. They qualify them. Those scars become their credentials. Their struggles evolve into strength. Their tears become the evidence of transformation, a testimony not of weakness, but of resilience. But this doesn't happen by accident. It requires intention. It demands practice. Start by turning inward. Examine your most significant pain points, the ones you rarely talk about. Then ask yourself, what might this pain be preparing me for? What strength could this challenge be building in me? One I wouldn't have without it. Even if you don't yet fully believe the answers, act as though you do, because action leads and emotion eventually follows. Step into the version of yourself who has already grown stronger from this experience. Move like the outcome is already forming, even when you still feel raw. Train yourself to extract purpose from the pain. When rejection shows up, search for the lesson buried beneath it. When failure knocks you down, identify the growth it's inviting. And when loss leaves you breathless, ask what redirection may be hidden within the grief. Nothing, and truly, absolutely nothing, needs to be wasted in your story. Your past doesn't have to be perfect to serve your future. Even the darkest pages can become the foundation of your brightest chapters if you assign them meaning. Every adversity comes with the seed of an equal or greater benefit. It may not be obvious at first, but your responsibility is to find that seed, protect it, nurture it, and allow something beautiful to grow from soil once soaked in your tears. Pain doesn't vanish. It transforms. It becomes the very foundation upon which an unshakable life is built. Think about that. What once brought you to your knees can become the bedrock of your greatest strength, but only if you give it direction. Because pain that serves no purpose weakens you twice. Once when it arrives, and again when it lingers without meaning. But pain that is channeled into purpose, that strengthens you twice. First through the resilience it forges, and then through the wisdom it leaves behind. You have a choice to make. Choose transformation over victimhood. Choose purpose over pointlessness. Choose to let every scar you carry serve your future, not sabotage it. Don't wait until you feel ready. Move even when you feel stuck, because feeling stuck is a mental state, not an unchangeable reality. How often does life try to convince us that motion must be preceded by motivation? That progress only counts when it feels good? But that's a myth. Real progress isn't measured by how you feel. It's measured by the direction you're moving. When you take one step forward, no matter how small, slow, or hesitant, that step counts. 1 inch of progress is still progress. Forward is forward. And when the weight of immobility threatens to crush you, motion, even the tiniest movement, becomes your most powerful act of resistance. You don't need to take a leap. You don't need to change everything overnight. Small, deliberate steps are enough. And over time, those simple, repeated actions begin to dismantle the walls that once felt insurmountable. The most dangerous illusion is waiting for the right moment to begin. The truth is the perfect moment never arrives on its own. The perfect moment is created the moment you act despite fear, despite doubt, despite uncertainty. Take Florence Nightingale. Born into Victorian wealth and privilege, her life was pre-scripted by society's rigid expectations. Nursing, at the time, was viewed as a profession beneath women of her class. She faced fierce opposition, disapproval from her family, skepticism from the medical community, resistance from the military. Every force around her tried to hold her in place, but she refused to remain confined. She chose movement, and it wasn't dramatic at first. It was steady, consistent, purposeful. With every step she took, establishing better hygiene protocols, documenting patient outcomes, revolutionizing sanitation standards, she moved closer to a vision that no one else yet believed in. And through that commitment to forward motion, Florence Nightingale didn't just push boundaries, she redrew them. Her steps became the foundation of modern healthcare, saving lives across generations. Because she didn't wait for permission. She acted, even when the path was unclear. When you keep moving forward, no matter how slow, hesitant, or seemingly insignificant each step may feel, you are making progress. 1 inch forward still counts. It's easy to underestimate the power of tiny steps, especially when you're surrounded by pressure to achieve big, visible results. But never forget, progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, invisible, internal. When the weight of stagnation threatens to pin you down, motion becomes your greatest weapon. Not explosive leaps, not grand gestures, but small, steady actions repeated with consistency. Those simple steps, they start to chip away at the walls you once thought were permanent. They become the hammer that breaks the illusion of impossibility. The greatest trap is waiting. Waiting for everything to line up. Waiting for confidence, for clarity, for the perfect moment to begin. But here's the truth. That perfect moment never comes wrapped in certainty. The perfect moment is always the one where you move anyway, despite the fear, despite the unknown. Look at Florence Nightingale. Her life was marked by privilege and expectation. Born into Victorian wealth, she was never meant to challenge the status quo. Nursing at the time was considered lowly, unfit for a woman of her social class. Every voice around her, from family to professionals to military officials, urged her to stay within her prescribed boundaries. But she didn't. She moved, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. She pushed forward step by step, establishing nursing protocols, documenting patient data, and revolutionizing sanitation in hospitals. Through those steady efforts, she laid the foundation of modern healthcare. The ripples of her actions saved lives, then and now. Her story reveals a powerful truth. Sometimes, the most important progress happens long before the world sees it. During her early work in the Crimean War, even with all her tireless effort, mortality rates remained stubbornly high. It would have been easy to believe her actions weren't making a difference. But she continued, gathering data, applying reforms, speaking out with resolve. Eventually, the death rate dropped dramatically, from 42% to just 2%. But the true shift happened long before that number changed. It happened in her choice to keep going, even when the results hadn't arrived yet. That's what makes the difference. When your mind says you're stuck, respond with a quiet, unwavering, "Watch me take one more step." Because action doesn't only come from belief, it creates it. Every small step is a refusal to be defined by temporary limitations. Every movement forward is a declaration that your story isn't over. Not yet. Motion is powerful. Even the smallest movement forward has the potential to create momentum. And once momentum is in motion, it begins to generate a force of its own. Over time, that force becomes strong enough to lift you out of the very stagnation that once felt like a permanent part of your identity. That's how transformation begins, not with dramatic change, but with consistent motion. This principle holds true in every arena of life. The writer staring at a blank page, paralyzed by pressure, who decides to write just 50 words. The entrepreneur whose business feels stuck in a rut, but still makes one more call. The person battling depression who, in the depths of hopelessness, simply gets out of bed. These acts might look small, but when they're done consistently, they start to dissolve psychological walls that once felt immovable. They create cracks in the armor of doubt. They build new pathways, one action at a time, through the obstacles that once seemed impassable. Often, that stuck feeling you're experiencing is not a signal of failure. It's a sign that you've outgrown your current space, but haven't yet built what comes next. You're standing in the liminal zone, that strange, uncertain middle ground between who you were and who you're becoming. It's uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar. And for many, it tempts retreat. Retreat to what's known, to what's safe, to what no longer fits. But you must resist that pull. Instead, search for the smallest action you can take. Not the boldest, not the most impressive, just the next one. Then take it, then another, then one more. That's how momentum builds, one quiet step at a time. Mark Twain once said, "Don't wait. The time will never be just right." And he was right. Perfect conditions are often just another disguise for procrastination. Waiting for everything to align is a subtle form of paralysis. The truth is, the conditions become right because you start moving through them, flawed, uncertain, and imperfect as they are. Remember, motion leads. Motivation follows. Inspiration doesn't strike before you act. It is born from action itself. So if you're waiting to feel ready, you may be waiting forever. But if you move, even without confidence, confidence will come. Eventually, your emotions will catch up. They always do, but only after your actions have paved the way. So today, take inventory. Identify the place where you feel most stuck. The area of your life that feels frozen. Now ask yourself, what is one small, tangible step I can take? And take that step before the day ends. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Even the tiniest movement reprograms your brain from I can't to I am. And that shift, it changes everything. Because once you begin moving, you reclaim your power. Once you take action, you start rewriting the story. And as you move forward, don't just walk blindly. Envision where you're headed. Picture your future until it becomes so clear, so vivid, that it starts to pull you forward. You cannot overcome what you cannot see yourself beyond. Vision gives you direction. It becomes your internal survival map. Without vision, you wander. You react. You drift. But with vision, every challenge becomes a stepping stone. Every obstacle becomes part of a path. With vision, you don't just survive, you move with purpose toward the life you were meant to live. It's not that people don't want to improve. It's that they haven't formed a clear enough mental picture of what that improvement actually looks like. Without vision, even the strongest desire fades. That's why you must create your future in your mind. Consciously, deliberately. Build it like an architect drafting blueprints for a skyscraper. Every detail matters. Every line must be intentional. And once that vision is drawn, you don't just glance at it now and then. You revisit it daily. You study it. You reinforce it until that image in your mind begins to shift from something imagined to something inevitable. This transformation doesn't come from wishful thinking. It doesn't rely on luck or magic. It comes through movement, through taking deliberate steps toward what you've envisioned, even when the road is unclear. When your vision is sharp, your decisions become focused. Your actions stop scattering in every direction. You start moving with strategy, not just energy. Even your setbacks begin to serve you, becoming raw materials for the future you're steadily building. Think of Andrew Carnegie. He started his journey in brutal conditions, 12-hour days in a cotton mill, earning next to nothing. Surrounded by noise, exhaustion, and hardship, he refused to see only what was in front of him, beyond the grinding machinery. He held onto a vision of something far greater, an industrial empire. That mental image pulled him forward. It gave his daily struggles meaning. It turned his pain into preparation. With patience and persistence, he built brick by brick what he first constructed in his mind. And in time, Carnegie didn't just rise to wealth. He reshaped history as one of the greatest philanthropists the world has ever known. Your path may look different, but the principle is the same. You must hold your vision firmly, especially when life tries to blur it. Don't fixate on what's holding you back. Focus instead on where you're going. Let that future image become your compass. Let it guide your decisions. Let it eliminate distractions that don't align with where you're headed. Because when life grows dark and uncertain, the easy reaction is to close your eyes, to surrender to despair. But that's when vision matters most. In those moments, don't close your eyes. Open your mind. See further. See beyond the pain, beyond the current struggle, into the possibilities waiting to be shaped. Your future isn't something you discover, it's something you design. And that design starts in the mind. Because the ability to envision isn't just a mental exercise, it's the foundation of creation itself. Without a clear blueprint, even your best efforts can feel scattered and ineffective. You might be working hard, but without direction, movement doesn't guarantee progress. But when you have a blueprint, when your vision is detailed and intentional, every small action begins to build momentum. That's how transformation becomes possible. This is why two people can face the same set of challenges, yet walk away with entirely different outcomes. It's rarely about circumstances. It's about perspective. It's about what each person sees beyond their current reality. The deciding factor isn't the situation, it's the vision. And here's where most people fall short. They keep their vision vague. But vague hopes lead to vague results. You need specificity. A real, tangible, practical vision. What exactly are you working toward? What does your future self look like? What are you doing? Who's around you? Where are you living? What kind of impact are you making? The more detailed your mental picture, the more emotionally compelling it becomes, and the more powerfully it influences your daily decisions. Clarity creates commitment. When you can see your future clearly, it begins to shape your behavior now. That's why visualization isn't just a motivational exercise, it's a mental strategy. Take time every morning to reconnect with that future. Let your mind step into it. Hear the sounds, feel the emotions, visualize it so vividly that it begins to feel familiar. You're not escaping reality, you're preparing to build it. Because everything begins with thought. Thought leads to ideas. Ideas turn into plans. And plans, when acted upon consistently, become reality. The thought is the template. The plan is the pathway. And action is what manifests the future you've imagined. Start now. Define your vision beyond your current limitations. Make it so specific, so compelling, that it pulls you forward through adversity. Because what you consistently envision within eventually shows up without. Not by magic, but by aligned and deliberate action. And as you move toward that vision, pay close attention to who surrounds you. You weren't designed to face life's battles alone. Your environment shapes your energy, your clarity, and your drive. It either lifts you up or drags you down. So build your inner circle with intention. Your survival, your success depends on it. The right people don't just offer support. They sharpen your focus. They hold you accountable. They challenge your weakness while reminding you of your strength. Survivors don't just rely on grit. They lean on strategic relationships. Not just anyone, the right ones. Allies with purpose. People who push you forward when your energy is low and your doubt is high. Consider William Wilberforce. His mission to abolish the slave trade was bold, relentless, and costly. But he didn't carry it alone. He surrounded himself with thinkers, fighters, and believers. His circle stood with him. And when his strength faltered, they carried the mission forward. That circle, known as the Clapham sect, became Wilberforce's backbone. For over 2 decades, they strategized with him, rode alongside him, funded his efforts, and pushed forward even when the odds seemed impossible. When he stumbled, they steadied him. When opposition grew fierce, they grew fiercer. Without that inner circle, Wilberforce's mission may have remained just a noble failure, an unfinished dream. But with them, it became legacy. This is the truth. Your inner circle isn't about comfort. It's about completion. It's not just about who you like. It's about who helps you become who you're meant to be. The people closest to you should possess strengths that fill the gaps where you fall short. They should be able to say what needs to be said, not just what you want to hear. They should speak truth when your mind is clouded, and hold the vision when your faith starts to fade. And remember, it's not about numbers. 5 deeply aligned relationships will elevate your life more than 50 surface-level acquaintances ever could. This isn't about popularity. It's about purpose. So be ruthlessly selective. Your capacity for deep connection is limited. Don't waste it on those who drain your strength or distract your focus. Ask yourself honestly, does this person make me stronger, sharper, more focused, more courageous? If not, then why are they in your inner circle? Because the architecture of your relationships sets the ceiling of your growth. Too many people allow their inner circles to form by default, through proximity, habit, or convenience. But your circle should be built with intention. Don't inherit friendships. Design alliances that support your highest calling. So ask yourself again, who have you invited into your war room? Who stands beside you when the battle intensifies? Are they sharpening your edge or softening your strength? It's time to stop settling for acquaintances. You need alliances. Find those who fan your fire, who call out your greatness, who push you further when you're tempted to pull back. And just as importantly, be that person for someone else. Because no one weathers the storm alone. In times of trial, ships don't sail solo. They travel in fleets, stronger together. And this works both ways. You must become the anchor and the compass for others as well. Contribution is what forges connection. Support is what generates strength. It's no exaggeration to say that you succeed fastest and most sustainably by helping others succeed. The strongest inner circles are built not on entertainment, but on elevation. They thrive on mutual growth. They are rooted in vulnerability, held together by accountability, and driven by shared purpose. These are the people who celebrate your wins as if they were their own. And when struggle hits, they don't step back, they lean in. Because in a true inner circle, your fight becomes our fight. Take time to periodically audit your relationships. Not everyone who started the journey with you is meant to finish it with you. Some connections that once served your growth may now be limiting your future. And while it's not always easy, true growth often requires pruning. This isn't about being cold, it's about being clear. Your mission deserves a supportive, empowering environment. Waiting until a crisis hits to find out who truly belongs in your inner circle is far too late. Build that circle now. Test it regularly. Strengthen it daily. Because the relationships you forge in calm seasons are the ones that determine whether you'll stand strong when the storm arrives. Your greatest achievements? They will never be solo acts. They'll be symphonies, the result of many hands, many minds, many hearts moving in harmony with your vision. And just like any great composition, the quality of the music depends on the musicians. So choose your ensemble with care. The sound of your life, the energy you carry, the mindset you sustain depends on who's playing beside you. Surround yourself with people who elevate your tempo, not disrupt your rhythm. Remember, you become the average of those you spend the most time with. Choose wisely. Choose intentionally. The future version of you will thank you for it. And as you continue building your life, don't forget the power of your own voice. Speak only what strengthens you. Words are never neutral. Every word you speak is a seed planted in your mind, either building you up or breaking you down. Especially in hard times, what you say becomes what you start to see. That's why you must speak as if your survival depends on your words, because it does. Negative language invites negative outcomes. It quietly undermines your confidence and reinforces limitation. But when you speak strength, even when you feel weak, you begin to retrain your mind. You rewire the way you interpret your world. Your body listens. Your mind listens. And yes, even the storm listens. And sometimes, when you shift your language, the storm begins to shift too. Look at Franklin D. Roosevelt. Stricken with polio, he could have easily stepped back from leadership, from responsibility. But instead, he spoke words of courage, not just to the people, but to himself. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. That wasn't just a slogan, it was a declaration. A personal mantra that reinforced his own strength first. And that inner conviction rippled outward. It didn't just lift him, it pulled an entire nation forward out of darkness. That's the power of language. Your words create your reality twice. First in your mind, then in your world. This isn't wishful thinking. It's rooted in neuroscience. The language you use literally carves new neural pathways in your brain. Say something often enough, and your mind starts treating it as truth. Speak defeat over and over, and your brain will look for proof that you're not capable. Speak victory, and suddenly, opportunities begin to appear in places where you once saw only obstacles. It's not magic. It's the discipline of thought made audible through language. But this practice takes vigilance, because the truth is, your mouth will always echo what your mind is filled with. So you must choose what fills your mind on purpose. If your thoughts are filled with fear, hesitation, and doubt, your words will reflect them. But if you fill your mind with resilience, purpose, and strength, that's what your speech will reinforce. Replace, "I can't handle this" with, "I was built for challenges like this." Trade, "This always happens to me," for, "This is preparing me for something greater." Switch, "I'm overwhelmed" to, "I'm handling this one step at a time." It may seem simple, but these shifts matter. In battle, soldiers are trained to never declare their weaknesses to the enemy. Yet in life's battles, how often do we do just that? Out loud to ourselves and to others? Every "I'm so tired" or "this is impossible" becomes a kind of self-issued command. A prophecy we unknowingly set in motion. Because your subconscious is always listening, always absorbing, always interpreting your words as instruction. It doesn't question you, it believes you. That's why your words are not just descriptions. They are tools, weapons, blueprints. What you speak is building the bridge from where you are to where you're meant to be. So sharpen your words. Guard them. Choose them wisely. Say, "I will endure." Say, "I was born for this." Say, "This storm ends with my victory." These aren't empty affirmations. They are declarations that guide your direction. This practice isn't about denying reality. It's about choosing your response to it. You can face the truth without surrendering to it. Saying "this is difficult" is simply stating a fact. But saying, "I can handle this difficulty" turns that fact into forward motion. It changes your posture. It builds internal momentum. What you say repeatedly is what you begin to believe. And what you believe, that shapes everything. Your words are the mirror of your thoughts and the mold for your identity. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "You become what you think about all day long, and your speech reveals what your mind has been meditating on." So begin a verbal revolution in your life. Start listening closely to the words you use every day. Audit your language like your future depends on it. What phrases have turned into toxic habits? What statements are quietly stealing your strength? Then rewrite your vocabulary. Speak like the person you are becoming, not the person you've been. Speak life when death feels certain. Speak abundance in the midst of scarcity. Speak peace into the chaos that surrounds you. Because the words you choose today are the seeds of the future you'll live tomorrow. Speak clarity into confusion, not as some form of wishful thinking, but as a deliberate mental discipline. This is not fluff. It's warrior training. You're preparing your mind for the battles ahead, the ones that will demand everything from you. Because whether you realize it or not, your future is being built right now. Conversation by conversation, thought by thought, word by word. So build it with intention. Don't let your language drift aimlessly. Speak like every word has weight, because it does. The words that cross your lips today will cross your path tomorrow. Choose only the ones that guide you where you truly want to go. And when life gets hard, and it will, remember this. Your character isn't found in difficulty. It's forged there. No one stumbles upon strength. It's shaped under pressure. Like iron and fire, your discipline, values, and inner power are revealed and refined through what you endure. That means survival isn't just about holding on until the storm passes. It's about who you become because of the storm. When you act as if the pain has purpose. When you believe it's shaping you for something greater. You stop fighting the fire and start using it. You stop seeing hardship as an interruption. You begin to see it as initiation. Life isn't punishing you, it's calling you into a stronger, sharper, more unshakable version of yourself. Not through ease, but through endurance. Look at Theodore Roosevelt. His life was marked by chronic illness, personal tragedy, and fierce political resistance. But those very battles carved him into one of history's most resilient leaders. He didn't shy away from challenge. He charged toward it. He once took a bullet to the chest during a campaign speech and refused medical attention until he finished addressing the crowd. That wasn't bravado. That was built courage. Courage he developed over time by facing hardship, not avoiding it. He didn't wait to feel fearless. He chose courage again and again until it became part of who he was. That's the paradox of character formation. The very experiences we want to avoid are often the ones we need most. Comfort, over time, breeds complacency. But challenge? Challenge builds character. Every time you choose to endure when escape is easier, to persist when quitting would be justified, to maintain integrity when no one would notice otherwise, you are adding another layer of steel to the structure of your soul. This is why your response to difficulty matters more than the difficulty itself. Because two people can walk through the same fire and emerge completely different. One comes out bitter, the other better. One walks away weaker, the other stronger. The difference isn't in the fire. The difference is in how they responded to it. Or, as one might ask, how did they happen to what happened to them? Throughout history, the greatest leaders, visionaries, and pioneers have all shared one defining trait. They allowed their struggles to transform them. They didn't just survive adversity, they used it. Nelson Mandela, after 27 years of imprisonment, didn't emerge with bitterness. He emerged with vision. A vision for peace, for justice, for a unified nation. Helen Keller, born into silence and darkness, didn't retreat. She rose and turned her dual disabilities into a global platform for empowerment, advocacy, and change. Their hardships weren't handicaps. They were crucibles, intense, refining fires that shaped character deeper than any classroom or comfort ever could. You must do the same. Look at every challenge as a sculptor's chisel, shaping you, not punishing you. Let it carve away doubt, entitlement, and weakness, revealing the strength and substance you didn't know you had. Say to yourself in the heat of difficulty, this moment is building my character. I will come through this clearer, cleaner, and tougher. When you adopt that mindset, survival takes on meaning. You're not just enduring, you're evolving. Because here's the truth, character can't be inherited. It can't be bought, borrowed, or gifted. It must be earned, personally, painfully, and consistently, through the choices you make under pressure. Alexander Hamilton once said, "Those who stand for nothing fall for anything." And he was right. Your character is your most valuable asset. It's the one thing that no one can take from you. But you can give it away through compromise, through avoidance, through silence in moments that demand strength. That's why you must be intentional about who you're becoming. Character doesn't just happen, it is forged. You must participate in your own development every single day. So ask yourself regularly and honestly, am I becoming stronger or weaker through this challenge? More courageous or more afraid? More disciplined or more distracted? And then adjust, realign, recommit. Remember, character isn't built only in grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's built in the small, quiet decisions that feel insignificant at the time. Waking up when you said you would. Telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Following through on promises no one else would remember. Choosing to stretch when comfort calls louder. These small choices compound. They either build strength or accumulate weakness. And the direction is always yours to choose. As President Calvin Coolidge wisely said, there is no development physically or intellectually without effort, and effort means work. Your character, your foundation, follows the same principle. It isn't determined by your circumstances. It's shaped by your effort, daily, deliberately, decisively. True survival means more than just staying alive. It means coming out of the storm, not only breathing, but breathing with purpose. Not just surviving, but surviving with fire in your chest and clarity in your eyes. Not just existing, but existing with excellence. That's the difference between merely enduring hardship and being transformed by it. Real triumph happens when you let difficulty forge in you a character that not only survives the challenge, but outlasts it. And to do that, you must find a reason to fight. People don't endure pain for nothing. They push through because something makes it worth it. A cause, a calling, a commitment. When you act as if your survival is connected to something greater than yourself, the pain gains meaning. And once life has meaning, there's almost nothing you won't walk through. The truth is, most people suffer unnecessarily not because the pain is too much, but because they haven't yet defined what they're fighting for. They don't know why they're enduring, so they drift, they fall. But you must decide. You must find your reason, your why. Whether it's your family, your future, your purpose, your dream, that reason becomes your anchor in the middle of the storm. It whispers, this pain is the price I already agreed to pay. Look at Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, stripped of nearly everything, but not his purpose. He noticed something striking. Those who survived weren't always the strongest in body. They were the ones who had a reason to survive, a mission in their minds. In Frankl's case, it was the vision of standing before others after the war, teaching what he had learned through suffering. That vision, however fragile, became his light in the darkness. While others surrendered to despair, he held on to purpose. And that purpose carried him through conditions that would break most. This is the power of your fighting reason. It turns I can't do this into I must do this. And that shift, it's everything. Because necessity awakens strength that comfort never will. When something must be done, you will find abilities that have been lying dormant, waiting for a reason to rise. That's why the world's most accomplished people don't talk about motivation as much as they talk about mission. Motivation is fleeting. Mission is foundational. It anchors you. It compels you. It pushes you forward even when every feeling tells you to quit. Because once you have a reason, everything changes. Olympic athletes don't push their bodies to the brink day after day because they're riding waves of inspiration. They do it because they're anchored to a goal that matters deeply. Entrepreneurs don't work 18-hour days out of a fleeting excitement. They're driven by a vision so meaningful they cannot abandon it. What fuels that kind of relentless effort? A specific, personal reason to fight. Vague dreams lead to vague action. Vague action leads to vague results. If your reason is blurry, your energy will be inconsistent. But when your reason is clear, when it hits you emotionally and aligns with your values, sacrifice becomes purposeful. Direction becomes obvious. Effort becomes sustainable. Saying, I want to be successful isn't enough. Success is too abstract to fuel long-term sacrifice. But saying, I want to provide a secure future for my children creates immediate emotional connection. It gives meaning to the grind. Or maybe your reason is changing how healthcare serves rural communities. That vision provides not just purpose, but direction. Or perhaps it's creating art that helps others process trauma. That's a mission. That's a calling. So ask yourself, what is your reason? What future are you refusing to surrender? Once you know the answer, hold it tight. Let it guide your every step, fuel your every breath, and energize your every battle. Because here's the truth. A person with a reason can endure almost anything. And know this, your reason will evolve. What drives you on May 20th not be what fuels you at 40. And that's not weakness. That's growth. The young parent fighting for their child's future becomes the seasoned mentor fighting for the next generation. The artist creating to heal themselves becomes the teacher who empowers others to create and heal too. As you grow, your fighting reason grows with you. It deepens. It expands. It becomes more connected to who you truly are, not just who you were. This evolution is natural, and it's necessary, because this isn't just about enduring hardship. This is about excelling in spite of it. Your fighting reason transforms survival into purpose-driven living. You stop simply enduring your challenges and start extracting meaning from them. Every setback becomes part of your story. Every obstacle becomes raw material for your mission. And when your desire is strong enough, when your reason is emotionally real, you'll unlock strength that seems almost superhuman. But it's not magic. It's not luck. It's psychology. It's the power of the human spirit coming fully alive when it connects to purpose. That's when everything changes. That's when endurance becomes excellence. Without a powerful reason driving you, you operate far below your true capacity. You go through the motions, but you never touch your potential. That's why you must find your reason. Feel it deeply, define it clearly, and fight for it relentlessly. Let it live in your mind and burn in your heart. Because when that reason is locked in, something incredible happens. The impossible starts to feel inevitable. Not because the obstacles vanish, but because you expand. Your strength stretches beyond what you believed was possible. You don't need the challenge to shrink. You need your capacity to grow. And that growth is sparked by pressure. So make pressure your partner, not your prison. Stop running from it. Start learning from it. Pressure is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And if you lean in, if you stop fearing it and start listening to it, pressure will introduce you to levels of strength you didn't know were inside you. But if you let it crush you, if you try to escape instead of engage, it becomes a prison. You must approach pressure like you approach weights in a gym. It's heavy. It's uncomfortable. But it's also the resistance that builds you. The more you engage with it, the stronger you become. Pressure forces clarity. It sharpens your instincts. It exposes what's weak and demands you grow stronger. That's not a curse. That's a gift. Look at Alfred Sloan, who stepped into leadership at General Motors during a time of chaos, fierce competition, and structural confusion. The weight of responsibility could have broken him, but instead, he reorganized the entire company. He didn't just manage the pressure, he used it to innovate. He transformed GM, let it pass competitors, and built it into a global force. Sloan didn't collapse under pressure. He created structure from it. Under his leadership, GM became the blueprint for the modern corporation. That wasn't an accident. That was pressure properly partnered with purpose. Because here's the truth. The difference between the average and the extraordinary isn't the absence of pressure. Everyone feels it. The difference is in how they respond to it. Extraordinary people don't run, they rise. Where average people see pressure as punishment, the exceptional see it as preparation. They understand something essential. Pressure reveals what comfort hides. It brings weaknesses to the surface, not to shame you, but to strengthen you. It reveals strengths you didn't realize were already within you. Elite athletes know this better than anyone. They don't wait until game day to push themselves. They train harder than the competition itself. Why? Because they understand that if you can thrive under extreme pressure, you can thrive anywhere. Navy SEALs live by a powerful principle. The more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in battle. This isn't about embracing pain for its own sake. It's about intentionally engaging with pressure in controlled environments so that when chaos strikes, you're not shocked, you're ready. This mindset completely transforms how you approach every challenge. When deadlines close in, when expectations skyrocket, when the heat of competition rises, don't view these as roadblocks to your success. See them as the forge that gives success its meaning. Because just like diamonds are created under intense pressure, so is your untapped potential. Take a moment and consider the pressure points in your life right now. The tight spots, the weight that feels overwhelming. Are you resisting them, dreading them, wishing them away? Or are you learning to relate to them, to lean in with purpose and perspective? Are you pushing against the weight or finally lifting with it? That's the shift that changes everything. That's the moment you go from victim to victor. It begins with a new narrative. This pressure isn't happening to me. It's happening for me. That single mental reframe flips the script. Suddenly, you're not being punished. You're being prepared. Now it's your turn to step into the arena. When pressure knocks on your door, don't ask, why me? Ask instead, what is this preparing me for? Or better yet, say, this is my proving ground. And treat it as such. Learn to remain calm when others panic. Stay clear when the noise grows louder. Stay committed when quitting seems easier. Pressure doesn't break those who are prepared. It reveals them. And no, pressure doesn't feel good. Growth rarely does. But here's the truth. Discomfort that is accepted becomes difficulty that is transformed. You stop running from it and start growing through it. The pressure you're facing today is building the strength you'll need tomorrow. Every challenge you lean into becomes an expansion of your capacity. But practical mastery over pressure doesn't just happen by chance. It requires 3 deliberate disciplines. First, breathe through it. When pressure tightens its grip, your breath is your anchor. Deep, steady breaths deliver oxygen to your mind and clarity to your choices. Second, focus through it. In the middle of mounting tension and countless distractions, narrow your attention to what truly matters. Let pressure refine your priorities, not distort them. Third, act through it. When uncertainty tries to paralyze you, movement becomes your breakthrough. No matter how small the action, keep going. Motion beats fear. Always remember, pressure only becomes a prison when you resist what it's trying to reveal. But when you face your limits honestly, they transform into starting points, not stopping points. When you welcome your challenges openly, they no longer torment you. They teach you. As Frederick Douglass once said with piercing truth, out of resistance comes strength. Out of struggle comes progress. Let that truth guide you. Let pressure not push you into panic, but push you into performance. Not into fear, but into a sharper focus. Not into retreat, but into unshakable resolve. Because the reality is this: your greatest breakthroughs often live just beyond your greatest burdens. When you partner with pressure, when you choose to learn from it rather than run from it, something extraordinary happens. What once felt like a prison begins to feel like propulsion. The very thing that once threatened to break you becomes the force that lifts you into freedom. But to reach that point, you must master a rarely understood discipline: the art of stillness in chaos. In seasons of turmoil, movement may feel like the answer. We rush, we react, we scramble. But movement isn't always progress. Sometimes survival, true, lasting survival, requires stillness. The kind of stillness that doesn't come from inaction, but from inner alignment. From choosing to remain centered when everything around you spins out of control. Stillness is not weakness. It is strength restrained. It is deliberate, focused presence. It's the capacity to stay rooted in who you are, even when the world demands you lose yourself. Chaos always wants a reaction. Stillness gives you back the power to respond. Calmly, wisely, intentionally. The one who can remain calm in the storm inevitably becomes the leader others look to. Because in stillness, you don't just silence noise, you amplify clarity. You hear the voice of wisdom rising above the roar of fear. Think of Mahatma Gandhi. He faced down an empire not with aggression, but with an unshakable calm. His power was not forged in frenzy, but anchored in peace. That quiet strength disarmed armies and reshaped the future of nations. Stillness, you see, is not the absence of doing. It's the presence of doing the right thing at the right time, from a place of deep alignment. Ancient martial arts masters have long understood this truth. Real power isn't found in wild motion or reactive aggression. It's found in rootedness, in the ability to hold your ground while others flail. Picture the oak tree standing firm through the storm, while the willow, though flexible, is uprooted by its own frantic movement. The oak survives not because it resists the wind, but because it remains grounded. This is why warriors throughout history have turned to meditation, not to escape reality, but to engage it more fully. They practice stillness to find presence, precision, control. Stillness creates a sacred space between what happens to you and how you respond. That space, sometimes just a pause, just a breath, is where your freedom lives. And in that breath lies the difference between breakdown and breakthrough. Without stillness, you become a prisoner, trapped by your impulses, driven by reactions, and ruled by fear-based decisions. But with stillness, you reclaim your power. You move from simply reacting to intentionally responding. You stop being the thermometer that reflects the temperature of your environment, and instead become the thermostat that sets it. This isn't just philosophical poetry. It's backed by modern neuroscience. When your mind is flooded with chaos, your ability to think clearly begins to shut down. Under intense stress, the blood flow in your brain shifts, away from the prefrontal cortex, where reason and decision-making lie, and toward the limbic system, the seat of emotion and survival instinct. In that state, logic takes a back seat. You're no longer choosing, you're just reacting. But here's the key. Cultivating stillness reverses that trend. It reactivates your highest faculties right when you need them most. And like any powerful skill, it can't be conjured in crisis if you haven't trained for it beforehand. So practice. Start small. Maybe 5 quiet minutes each morning before the noise of the world finds you. Take a few intentional breaths between back-to-back meetings. Pause deliberately before you reply to that comment that stings. These are more than routines. They're mental reps building neural strength. Each act of stillness carves a pathway in your brain that leads to calm clarity under fire. Because when pressure builds, when the storm hits, what will keep your ship steady isn't frantic motion, it's stillness. That moment you stop, breathe, and come back to your center is not an action. It's the birthplace of the most effective action. Stillness isn't retreat. It's deeper engagement. It's not passivity. It's strategic power. It's not a void. It's the space where intention is born. In your hardest moments, stillness isn't weakness. It becomes your most reliable strength. General Dwight D. Eisenhower understood this well. He once said that deliberate calmness under fire is the greatest asset of the leader in crisis. Think about that. In the chaos of war, it wasn't brute force or immediate reaction that led to success. It was calm, deliberate, stillness. And the same is true for you. Whether you're facing pressure in business, personal life, or inner struggle, stillness gives you the edge. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason with a clear and unwavering mind. Cultivate calmness as your competitive edge. In a world spinning with reactivity, make stillness your signature. Let others rush while you remain rooted. Let them flinch under pressure while you breathe through it. Let them chase chaos while you channel clarity. Because in moments of uncertainty, those who stay composed lead, while those who panic follow. In challenging seasons, the most powerful thing you can do is keep your word to yourself. It's easy to make promises when everything is smooth. But when life tightens its grip, the real test begins. Will you still honor your commitment when no one else is watching? Every time you follow through, even when it's inconvenient, even when you'd rather quit, you reinforce trust in your own strength. And every time you abandon that promise, your confidence doesn't just falter, it fractures. Survivors behave as if their word is sacred. They don't just speak about resilience, they demonstrate it through consistency. That personal integrity becomes their internal compass. Because when the external world feels unstable, the one foundation you must be able to rely on is yourself. History remembers David Lloyd George not merely for his title as Prime Minister, but for the vow he made in the quiet of his early life to uplift working-class citizens. Despite resistance, despite the burden of war, he stood firm. His promises weren't momentary declarations. They were lifelong commitments. And through them, he reformed Britain's social framework with initiatives like national insurance and pensions, lasting proof that inner conviction can reshape an entire nation. Self-trust isn't built in grand gestures. It's forged through small, intentional victories. When the alarm sounds and you rise instead of rolling over, victory. When you commit to a focused work session and follow through without distraction, victory. When you vow to speak up and your voice enters the room, another victory. Alone, these choices may seem trivial, but together, they form the bricks of unshakable self-belief. Most people don't realize how damaging self-betrayal truly is. When you say, "I'll start today," and don't, it's not just a delay. You're silently teaching your subconscious that your word can be ignored, that you can't be trusted. And over time, this internal erosion makes it harder to believe in yourself, harder to act, harder to endure. But when you protect your word, when you treat it like a contract with your future, everything changes. You stop depending on motivation and start depending on your own integrity. When you repeatedly fail to honor your own word, you're not just delaying progress. You're programming yourself to expect failure. This internal fracture, this subtle gap between your intentions and your actions, becomes a silent burden. It adds invisible weight to every future attempt, dragging down your momentum before you even begin. But here's the good news. The reverse is just as powerful. When you start honoring your promises to yourself with discipline and consistency, you begin building a sense of inner certainty. A quiet, unshakable belief forms. If I say it, I do it. That belief becomes a launch pad. With each fulfilled commitment, no matter how small, you expand your capacity for bigger challenges. Momentum is born through integrity. And this principle doesn't apply only to achievement. It applies just as much to emotional resilience. When you say, "I will not be defeated by this setback," that statement can serve as an anchor in the storm, but only if your actions have already trained your mind to believe your words. Because your subconscious doesn't respond to empty affirmations. It responds to the pattern you've built through repeated action. So start today. Make a vow to yourself. I will rise. Then follow through. No matter how modest the step, whether it's 5 push-ups, 1 paragraph, or a single difficult phone call, honor it. Your consistency builds credibility. Speak only what you're willing to back up, and then prove it one action at a time. This is how survivors shift belief into reality. Not through wishful thinking, but through proof. Through evidence. Through showing up over and over until your brain stops doubting and starts depending on you. Begin with commitments you know you can keep. If self-trust has been broken in the past, don't try to repair it with grand gestures. Start with what you can control. A 5-minute walk, a single glass of water, a moment of silence before bed. Keep it simple and keep it sacred, because every kept promise adds another brick to the foundation of unshakable trust. And that foundation doesn't just support your personal goals. It shapes every relationship you have. The way you treat yourself becomes the standard for how others treat you. When you consistently follow through, others don't just respect you, they rely on you. And more importantly, you begin to rely on yourself. As the old saying goes, the man who does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for more than he does. But that only happens when you first keep your word to yourself. The person who consistently delivers more than they promise themselves will soon discover that they're capable of promising and achieving far more than they once believed possible. With every fulfilled commitment, you expand the limits of what you can expect from yourself. That internal expansion becomes your new standard. And when setbacks inevitably come, don't view them as signs of failure. See them as signals. Setbacks aren't telling you to give up. They're pointing you toward refinement, nudging you to adjust, not abandon. You must act as if every setback carries a coded message, not closed door. Treat failure as feedback, not a verdict. That's where resilience begins. The reason so many people collapse under pressure is because they misinterpret what failure is saying. They hear stop when the message is actually shift. They assume rejection is permanent rather than directional. But those who endure, who grow, who ultimately win, look at every setback like a chess player studies the board. They don't panic. They strategize. What's the next move? What lesson is buried here? What can be improved? You must separate the event from your identity. A failed attempt is not a failed person. It's not about who you are. It's about how you did it. If the strategy is flawed, refine it. If the timing is off, recalibrate. But never confuse a broken method with a broken purpose. Adjust the plan, not the mission. Take Charles Goodyear, for example. He faced failure after failure while trying to transform rubber into something durable. Most would have quit after the first few disasters. But Goodyear refused to let repeated ruin redefine his purpose. He endured years of ridicule and hardship, even selling his children's school books just to keep experimenting. He didn't see his failed attempts as defeats. He saw them as data. And when that famous moment finally came, the accidental spill of rubber and sulfur onto a hot stove, it wasn't just a lucky break. It was the product of 1,000 insights earned through struggle. His success was made possible by a mindset that didn't just tolerate failure, but studied it. That mindset was his edge. But cultivating this attitude requires emotional discipline. Let's be honest, when things fall apart, the initial response is almost always disappointment, maybe even shame. That's natural, but you can't afford to stay there. Acknowledge the emotion, but don't let it steer your decision-making. That's where your power lies. When failure strikes, pause. Ask yourself, was the strategy flawed? Did I underestimate the preparation required? Was it poor timing or something entirely outside my control? Each of these questions helps you move from emotional reaction to intelligent correction. Because in truth, failure is only fatal when you refuse to extract the lesson it offers. The quality of the questions you ask yourself in the aftermath of failure determines the quality of your comeback. Weak questions like, why does this always happen to me? Or what's wrong with me? Only deepen discouragement and lead you in circles. But powerful questions like, what exactly went wrong? Or what can I adjust next time to make this work? These are the questions that open doors. They carve new pathways forward, often hidden just beneath the surface of your frustration. Setbacks, when framed properly, become essential calibrations, not condemnations. Think of a pilot whose flight plan is constantly adjusted midair due to unpredictable winds or sudden storms. They don't see those corrections as failures. They see them as necessary navigational responses, vital to arriving safely. Your journey in life demands the same kind of flexible, strategic steering. When something collapses or veers off course, the first thing to do isn't to panic. It's to pause and ask better questions. What is this moment trying to teach me? What's the next smart move? Not the emotional one, but the intelligent one. Let the setback sharpen your clarity, not dull your desire. Let it increase your insight, not erode your drive. There is always a way forward. Always, but only if you remain awake to the signals. Resilience isn't about sidestepping failure. It's about changing your relationship with it. A no becomes useful data. A mistake becomes a lesson. A loss becomes a signal to prepare for something greater. This ability to turn setbacks into stepping stones is what separates those who merely endure from those who eventually rise and lead. Every failure, without exception, carries within it the seed of something valuable. Your task is not to avoid the failure, but to find the seed, plant it with care, and water it with consistent effort. Over time, what looked like the end will reveal itself to have been the beginning of something better. This is how the very soil of your struggle becomes the foundation of your future success. And through all of this, cultivate gratitude, not just when things go well, but especially when pressure builds. Gratitude, in moments of pain, is not weakness. It is armor. You must act as if thankfulness is your shield, because it truly is. Gratitude has the power to lift your mindset above the waves, to keep your inner world steady even when everything outside is shifting. When you give thanks during hardship, you're not denying reality. You're rewriting how your brain responds to it. It all comes down to discipline. Your external circumstances don't have to shift for your internal perspective to transform. And when that shift happens, when your lens on life adjusts, your energy begins to rise, often in ways that surprise even you. Viktor Frankl, enduring the unbearable cruelty of Nazi concentration camps, discovered this profound truth in one of history's darkest places. Amidst inhuman suffering, he realized something powerful. While everything could be stripped from him, one freedom remained untouched: the ability to choose his attitude. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That single truth became his anchor. It is also the core of practicing gratitude under pressure, the intentional decision to extract meaning even in moments of immense pain. And remarkably, what Frankl concluded through lived experience is now echoed by neuroscience. Modern research shows that gratitude quite literally reshapes your brain. When you practice it consistently, it increases levels of dopamine and serotonin, the chemicals associated with happiness and motivation. With every repetition, it forms and reinforces neural pathways that support emotional resilience and cognitive clarity. It's not just about feeling better. It's about functioning at a higher level, especially under pressure. Studies reveal that individuals who cultivate gratitude regularly make better decisions, remain calmer in crisis, and recover more quickly from emotional setbacks. But that doesn't mean gratitude is about denying reality. Authentic gratitude looks difficulty square in the face and says, yes, this is hard, and I'm still thankful. That small but powerful word, and creates space for growth without negating the pain. It allows reality and possibility to coexist in the same breath. So where do you begin? Start small. Start today. Each morning, identify 3 specific things you're genuinely grateful for. Don't settle for vague generalities. Be precise. Instead of saying, I'm grateful for my health, try, I'm thankful for the energy I had during my walk this morning. Instead of just, I appreciate my family, try, I'm grateful for my daughter's message that reminded me I'm not alone. This kind of specificity rewires the brain more effectively than abstract praise. Gratitude, practiced with clarity and consistency, becomes not just an emotional state, but a strategic advantage, especially when the pressure is on. Now, take it one step further. Learn to transform complaints into expressions of gratitude. The next time you hear yourself sigh, I have to work late again, try reframing it to, I get to contribute to a project that holds real value. When your mind starts saying, this problem is overwhelming, catch that thought and redirect it to, I'm thankful for the strength and intellect to face tough challenges head on. This isn't just playing word games. It's a deliberate, strategic reframe, one that shifts your brain chemistry and empowers your emotional posture. Gratitude, especially in high-pressure situations, acts like a neurological anchor. It grounds you. It changes your internal narrative from helplessness to agency. And doesn't stop there. Gratitude is also a powerful connector, especially when pressure makes you feel isolated. When you pause to genuinely thank others, even for the smallest support or gesture, you strengthen the bonds that carry you through adversity. The person who consistently practices gratitude under pressure is never truly fighting alone. They're surrounded by the invisible strength of a reinforced support system. Begin exactly where you are. You don't need perfection to be thankful. What you need is purpose. Be grateful not because everything is ideal, but because everything has meaning, even the pressure. After all, pressure proves that you're engaged, evolving, and still in the game. Gratitude isn't about turning a blind eye to hardship. It's about choosing to see through it. So say thank you, even when it feels most unnatural to do so. Because gratitude isn't just a feeling you wait for. It's a practice you commit to until it becomes your instinctive response to life's intensity. As Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote from within a Nazi prison, in ordinary life, we hardly realize that we receive a great deal more than we give, and that it is only with gratitude that life becomes rich. And as Khalil Gibran echoed, you give but little when you give of your possessions. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give. Gratitude is that very offering. It's the courageous act of giving your perspective, your strength, and your clarity, especially when the world around you urges collapse. So narrow your focus. Zero in on what you can control. Because in survival, clarity isn't optional. It's everything. And nothing sharpens clarity like the decision to anchor yourself in what's still within your grasp. Far too many people exhaust their strength on things they were never meant to control. Other people's opinions, past mistakes, or imagined futures filled with uncertainty. But you must move differently. Think of your focus as your fortress. Protect it. Direct it. Live as if your survival depends on what you choose to give your energy to. Because it does. You must take ownership over your effort, your attitude, and your preparation. These are your tools. Everything else, that's noise. And in high-pressure moments, noise becomes the enemy of clarity. Distraction, especially under pressure, isn't just inefficient, it's dangerous. It diverts your power away from action and into worry. Admiral Horatio Nelson, one of Britain's most renowned naval leaders, understood this better than most. When facing the massive combined fleets of France and Spain at the Battle of Trafalgar, he didn't dwell on their numbers. He didn't waste time lamenting his disadvantage. Instead, he poured his full attention into what he could shape: his fleet's maneuverability, their morale, and their unified purpose. While others might have panicked, he focused on formation, training, and spirit. And that's what led to one of the most decisive naval victories in world history. His story is a striking example of a principle that transcends battlefields and speaks directly to daily life. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome taught a similar lesson, calling it the dichotomy of control, the ability to wisely distinguish between what lies within your influence and what is not. As Epictetus wrote in his Enchiridion, some things are up to us and some things are not. Within our power are our opinions, our desires, our motivation, and our choices. Outside our power lie things like our reputation, the behavior of others, our physical body, and external events. This isn't just a philosophical distinction. It's a practical guide for resilience. When your attention is consumed by what you cannot change, you generate stress, confusion, and paralysis. But when you narrow your focus to what's actually within your control, you begin to generate traction. You move forward, not because conditions are perfect, but because your mindset is. Even in situations where your options feel limited, you still command critical variables. Your response to what's happening, the story you tell yourself, the physical effort you put in, the way you seek out growth, and the values that guide your actions. These internal levers are more powerful than any external force, if you choose to use them. These internal levers, your thoughts, your energy, your choices, may seem insignificant in the face of overwhelming challenges. But don't underestimate them. Over time, they compound quietly but powerfully into the line between collapse and breakthrough. That line is drawn each day by your ability to refocus, not once, but consistently, from what lies beyond your grasp to what rests within your control. And like any skill, this redirection requires steady practice. When anxiety creeps in, when your mind spirals toward outcomes you can't predict or control, pause and ask yourself, what is one thing I can influence right now? This single question has the power to pull you out of paralysis and into purposeful motion. It cuts through the fog and reminds you that you still have agency, even in the storm. The lesson is deceptively simple. Guard your focus like a treasure. Obsess, not over what drains you, but over what fuels you. Your energy is a limited, sacred resource. Why squander it on battles you can't win or storms you can't stop? The survivors, the peak performers, the ones who rise in crisis, they win not by controlling everything, but by controlling what counts. They narrow their focus. They sharpen their execution. They choose deliberately where to place their energy. This mindset isn't exclusive to military leaders or Olympic athletes. It's a universal principle practiced by the highest achievers across business, sports, medicine, and beyond. These individuals don't waste time complaining about market downturns, unpredictable competitors, or resource limitations. Instead, they double down on what they can shape: their preparation, their response, their ability to adapt and grow. You, too, are the architect of your outcomes. You may not control the world around you, but you can absolutely influence how you engage with it. And this influence begins with one quiet decision: to focus only on what is yours to shape. That decision is the beginning of mastery. Not the mastery of everything, but the mastery of self. In uncertain times, action is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Waiting for the fog to clear is a trap. You can't afford to pause until conditions are perfect. You must move forward anyway. This is what courage looks like, acting not in the absence of fear or ambiguity, but in their presence. You choose to move despite the unknowns. That's where momentum is born. Stop waiting for everything to make sense. Take the next step with what you do know. Let movement illuminate the path ahead. You won't always choose perfectly, but movement breeds insight. In contrast, hesitation grows doubt, and prolonged doubt creates paralysis. It's a cycle that can spiral into inaction, draining your power day by day. Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton faced one of the most harrowing survival stories in recorded history. When his expedition went disastrously wrong in 1915 and his ship, the Endurance, was crushed by relentless Antarctic ice, he didn't freeze in fear or fall into despair. With 27 men stranded on drifting ice floes, isolated by thousands of miles from the nearest civilization, Shackleton made a choice: to lead with bold, decisive action. He guided his crew across shifting, treacherous ice fields. He launched fragile lifeboats into the most dangerous and unforgiving waters on Earth. And in one of history's greatest acts of leadership, he personally set out on an 800-mile journey through hurricane-force winds and frigid seas to find help. His leadership wasn't flawless. No human's ever is. But it was unshakably resolute. And because of that, every single man under his command survived. Why is that story so powerful? Because the human mind desperately craves certainty. Neuroscience shows us that uncertainty activates the amygdala, your brain's built-in alarm system. That's why indecision doesn't just feel uncomfortable, it feels dangerous. It's a biological response, wired deep into our evolutionary survival instincts. When the future is unclear, your brain tells you to freeze. But here's the paradox. True survival, real resilience, often demands that you override that very instinct. The most effective leaders, creators, and changemakers aren't the ones who have all the answers. They're the ones who've trained themselves to act in the presence of uncertainty. They know that clarity is not a prerequisite for action. It's often a result of it. Taking action doesn't mean charging ahead blindly. It means refusing to let uncertainty paralyze you. You won't be able to predict every outcome, but you can choose your next move. And that one move creates motion, which creates momentum. Even in the darkest moments, a single step forward has power far beyond what it seems. Smart decision-making under uncertainty follows a pattern. First, you gather the best information available to you. Then, you establish your top priorities. You make a decision, not necessarily the perfect one, but a timely one. You commit to it with full presence, and then you stay flexible enough to adjust when reality shifts. That last step is vital. As General Dwight D. Eisenhower wisely said, "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." What he meant was this: the value isn't in the rigidity of your plan, but in the process of preparing yourself to adapt. Flexibility is what turns strategy into success. The world's most influential figures didn't wait for perfect conditions. Martin Luther King Jr. couldn't be certain his peaceful resistance would reshape civil rights in America. Florence Nightingale had no guarantee her revolutionary ideas would be accepted by a medical community rooted in tradition. Marie Curie didn't have certainty that her groundbreaking theories would be proven true. She had no guarantee of success, no roadmap carved out before her. And yet, she acted, not because she knew the outcome, but because she knew her purpose. That distinction makes all the difference. This same principle echoes through countless personal stories around us today. It's the entrepreneur who dares to launch a new venture despite economic instability. It's the student choosing a major, unsure of where it will lead. It's the individual who walks away from a toxic relationship, trading familiarity for the unknown in pursuit of something better. In each case, action taken in the face of uncertainty isn't merely courageous, it's essential for growth. Because here's the truth. Uncertainty never fully disappears. Even decisions that seem rock solid are laced with variables we can't foresee. Perfect clarity is a myth, a mirage that keeps people waiting far too long. The real question isn't whether uncertainty exists. It always will. The question is, will you let it hold you back, or will you move forward despite it? The path begins with small, confident steps. Decisive action doesn't have to be grand. It just needs to be intentional. Every forward move builds trust in yourself and opens new opportunities that standing still could never reveal. Have you ever noticed how progress accelerates once you simply begin? Movement begets momentum. The person who moves continues to move, gathering not only information but resilience and bravery along the way. As W.H. Murray wrote during his Scottish Himalayan expedition, "Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. But the moment you commit wholeheartedly, a powerful shift begins, internally and externally. Doors open, energy aligns, resources appear. It's not magic, it's mindset. Committing to action doesn't erase uncertainty, but it activates courage, clarity, and opportunity within yourself and around you. That's why you must stop waiting. The timing will never be perfect, There won't be a moment when every condition aligns effortlessly. Start from where you are, use what's already within your reach, and trust that better tools, better paths, and better outcomes will reveal themselves along the way. Live as if victory is not just possible, it's your birthright. You weren't born to win by chance. You were born to win by choice, through consistent, courageous action. This isn't arrogance. It's alignment with who you truly are and what you're here to do. When you begin to live as though victory is not just possible, but inevitable, something fundamental changes. Your decisions shift. They no longer stem from fear or hesitation, but from confidence and conviction. That inner certainty radiates outward, influencing your energy, your actions, and over time, your results. You stop hoping for good outcomes. You start walking through adversity as if the result has already been determined in your favor. This mindset becomes a quiet command to the world. Meet me with respect. Because people are naturally drawn to those who stand firm, who move with purpose, and who don't flinch in the face of challenge. They follow the one who leads not with arrogance, but with resolve. Take Madam C.J. Walker as an example. Born just after the Civil War to formerly enslaved parents, she faced the triple burden of poverty, racism, and gender bias. Working as a washerwoman, she had every reason to believe that her circumstances would define her limits. But she chose to believe something different. She carried herself with an unshakable inner belief that her life could rise beyond its origins. While others doubted what was possible, she envisioned a business that served and uplifted others. She developed a line of hair care products for Black women, built a manufacturing company, trained an entire network of female sales agents, and ultimately became America's first female self-made millionaire. She didn't simply hope for success, she expected it. And in doing so, she created it. Her certainty shaped her reality. This kind of belief isn't naive optimism, it's strategic. It's about choosing a stance that unlocks your greatest internal resources. When you face challenges as though they are already destined to end in your favor, your brain responds accordingly. You begin accessing creativity, courage, and resilience that would otherwise remain dormant under the weight of doubt. Science backs this up. Neuroscience shows that when we operate from a position of confidence and expectation, our prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic, problem-solving, and decision-making, is fully engaged. But when we're consumed by fear or self-doubt, the amygdala, our brain's fear center, takes over. Our cognitive function narrows. We retreat instead of rise. In other words, the mindset of victory isn't just inspirational, it's biological. General George Patton understood this well during World War I. He told his troops, "Never take counsel of your fears." That wasn't just a motivational catchphrase, it was a way of life. His bold strategies and fearless decisions were built on unwavering belief in eventual triumph. Even when the odds looked grim, he acted from a place of mental clarity, not emotional chaos. And as Patton once reflected, success isn't measured by how high a person climbs in easy times. It's measured by how they carry themselves when the path grows steep. But by how high he bounces when he hits bottom. Resilience, for him, wasn't just a personal mantra. It translated into battlefield performance, into action under fire, into unwavering composure when others faltered. And that same mindset, the belief in inevitable victory, isn't reserved for generals or war heroes. It transforms the way we show up in our everyday lives. When you truly believe success is a matter of when, not if, you stop draining your energy planning for failure. Your mental bandwidth isn't spent hedging bets or second-guessing moves. Instead, you channel everything into preparation, execution, and consistency. You train harder not out of fear, but from conviction. You study longer not to catch up, but because you expect to lead. You focus deeper because you know the finish line has your name on it. With this mindset, every challenge shifts its shape. What others call setbacks, you treat as setups. What looks like a dead end to someone else becomes a detour guiding you to better terrain. Rejection stops being personal. It becomes redirection. Failure stops being final. It becomes formative feedback. You don't pretend the road is easy, but you walk it knowing where it leads. The person who believes victory is inevitable doesn't deny hardship. They simply refuse to be shaped by it in a negative way. Their identity isn't tied to the latest result. It's grounded in the long view. This is how you endure when others collapse. This is how you stay in motion when others stall. This mindset doesn't just get you started. It keeps you standing when the storm hits. As Winston Churchill reminded a weary world during the darkest days of war, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. That kind of courage doesn't just appear in moments of need. It's built slowly, daily, through repetition and resolve. And it flows more easily when your foundation is certainty, not hesitation. So you must live this way. You must carry yourself with conviction, speak with intention, and work with a level of diligence that reflects who you know you're becoming, not who you fear you are. Victory, then, becomes more than a goal. It becomes your standard. And here's the truth. The world eventually yields to the one who simply refuses to quit. Of course, this mindset isn't self-sustaining. Doubt will creep in. Your brain is hardwired for it. Evolution taught us to fear the unknown, to anticipate threats, to protect ourselves by expecting the worst. But just because it's natural doesn't mean it's helpful. You must actively train your mind to expect more. That means rewriting your inner dialogue. It means anchoring yourself with affirmations that reflect your purpose. It means visualizing success with such clarity that your brain begins building pathways toward it. And it means setting goals not just to measure your progress, but to remind yourself of who you're becoming every step of the way. Just like any muscle in your body, the mindset of victory doesn't simply appear. It must be trained, tested, and intentionally strengthened through consistent repetition. It requires deliberate mental exercise, day after day, moment by moment. And just as your habits shape your outcomes, so do the people around you. Surround yourself with voices that echo confidence, with people who speak in the language of certainty. Those who say when it happens, not if. Because belief, much like fear, is contagious. The people you engage with either reinforce your inner strength or quietly erode it. That's why community matters. When you're part of an environment where conviction is the standard and doubt is challenged, your potential expands naturally. Together, you begin to build something more powerful than isolated effort. You create an ecosystem of achievement. A culture of purpose. A network where rising is inevitable because no one is settling. Never forget, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. This timeless truth has carried generations through impossible circumstances, and it can carry you too. So when the world around you begins to crack, when everything feels like it's closing in, remind yourself, this pressure is not here to break you. It's here to build you. You were not created to crumble. You were born to endure, to rise, and ultimately to conquer. Don't run from the fire. Don't fold under the weight. Stand tall in it. Let the heat refine you. Train your mind until it obeys your highest vision. Sharpen your will until hesitation disappears. Push forward, not with noise, but with quiet, unshakable power. Because the breakthrough you're chasing, it's buried beneath the pressure you're feeling right now. So dig, keep going. And when you feel like stopping, dig even deeper. Rise. Not just to survive, but to lead, to live, and to inspire. Wishing you strength, happiness, and lasting health. And if you found value in this message, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Mindset Daily, for more content to fuel your journey.